So in this session, we will discuss the fiber modeling approach for beams, columns, and shear walls. So before I start, I want to introduce this very useful book by Professor Graham Powell, Modeling for Structural Analysis. And this is very useful if you want to develop concepts in the nonlinear modeling and some other behavioral aspects of structures. So some of the content which I will be showing in next slide is taken from this book about fiber modeling. And the second resource which I want to introduce is this manual, and this can be downloaded from this link. I have just compiled different nonlinear modeling approaches and how we can do it in ETABS using in this manual. So it provides us not exactly in a step-by-step manner, but it provides us an overview of what nonlinear modeling approaches or nonlinear modeling options are available in ETABS and how we can implement them. So please download this reference from this link, and then I will be using it to discuss some of the nonlinear modeling concepts in ETABS also in later part of my discussions also. So just a quick recap that we know that there are two basic approaches of nonlinear modeling. One is fiber modeling, other is the plastic hinge modeling. Fiber modeling is based on the idea that the material itself can be directly made nonlinear using nonlinear stress strain curve, and then we can that nonlinear action manifests itself automatically at the cross-section, member, and structure level. Plastic hinge modeling approach is based on the idea that we introduce the inelastic elements right at cross-section or member level directly and not at material level. So when we introduce the nonlinear plastic hinges at member level directly, they account for all the effects, all the local effects at the lower levels also. So in this session, we will be discussing the fiber modeling approach for nonlinear modeling of structural components. And we will focus only on beams, RC beams, for example, shear columns and shear walls. Columns and shear walls. So as I have explained in the last session also that the cross-section of a structural member is divided into a number of uniaxial fibers. Since we divide our cross-section in this approach into number of fibers like these, for example, if we have a RC column, we divide them into these fibers, and obviously RC column will have some rebars also. So let's say that it has 4 rebars. So these 4 rebars will be modeled separately as uniaxial fibers. So these will be 4 steel fibers and maybe 9 concrete fibers. Okay. So a total of 13 fibers in this column. So we divide our cross section into a number of uniaxial fibers. Why uniaxial? Because we give them, for example, this fiber running along the length. Okay, this whole fiber. This will be given a stress strain behavior only in the axial direction. Okay, so this will be sigma versus epsilon stress strain behavior in the axial direction only, axial direction only. So we will just provide, so it's like, as I sometimes say that consider the cross section as a bundle of spaghetti, and each of the spaghetti is one fiber, and it is uniaxial fiber. It has only elongation and shortening degree of freedom, and the nonlinear stress strain behavior in that uniaxial direction is assigned as an input. Similarly, for steel fiber also, you will be assigning a nonlinear stress strain relationship, and that will be only applicable to that particular fiber. So to each fiber, one by one, you will assign a nonlinear stress strain relationship, and that fiber will be running along the length or larger dimension of the member. This can be applied to shear wall also, this approach. That this is my shear wall cross section in plan view. So there can be certain rebars in my shear wall, for example, like this. So I can just slice this cross section along this direction, and each of the element, each of the fiber which is running along the length. If you look at the 3D view, it may look like this, that if this is your shear wall in 3D view, all of the fibers are running along the length. Each of them will be given with a stress strain curve, a uniaxial stress strain relationship. And that relationship can capture various aspects of material nonlinearity. For example, strain hardening in steel, that stress strain relationship can capture. In concrete, axial crushing, for example, and axial cracking in tension, for example, if this is, let's say, compression and that side is tension, all the effects, nonlinear effects at material level can be captured using the shape of this stress strain relationship. So that's how fiber modeling approach is implemented, and all the localized effects or failure in a particular cross section or in a particular element can be captured. And obviously, as I've explained earlier also, that this fiber modeling approach can either be used for part of a total length or for whole length of the element. So these fibers can run along part of the length also, and also it can run through whole length of that column also. So using this approach for beams, columns, or shear walls, the length of the fiber segment is also defined. So which can either be the full length of the member or some fraction of the full length. So you have to define the length also. So you may say that this is my column. So fibers should run up to this length, which can be 0.1 times the total length. And on the other side also maybe 0.1 times the total length. And in between there can be an elastic element for that column. This will save your analysis time. But this you can do only if you are expecting the inelastic action at the ends only. If you are expecting the inelastic action in the middle also, then you should better run the fibers along the whole length, not up to a certain proportion of the length. So a complete beam, column, or wall element may be made up of several fiber segments. As I've said, that you divide the, you can say, cross section. So what you can do is that you can also have like this, that this is my column, okay, and fibers should run maybe up to this length from top. Then and then you have an elastic element. Then maybe you can have another fiber segment here in between also, like this. You can use fibers also in that in between also. And then towards the end also, you may have again these fiber section. So one part or one length of the fibers will be called fiber segment. Okay. So one column can be made of several fiber segments if you are expecting nonlinearity at different locations along the length. And alternatively, you can also go for the whole length of the column as fiber element. For RC members, a fiber segment comprises of several fibers of concrete and steel with their respective stress strain relationships. So as I've said, that you divide your cross section into concrete and steel fibers and assign each fiber with a stress strain relationship. That will be nonlinear stress strain relationship, accounting for various aspects of material nonlinearity. The fiber modeling can also account for axial flexural interaction and obviously for axial deformation caused by bending in columns and shear walls. So fiber modeling can capture the axial flexural interaction. But for example, if you want to account the inelasticity in axial and flexural directions separately in plastic hinge model, there you have to actually define two separate plastic hinges, one in axial direction, one in flexural direction. but they will be uncoupled there. But fiber modeling can account the axial flexural interaction directly. The shear behavior in beams, column, and shear wall need to be modeled separately. Fiber model cannot handle shear behavior. If you want to model that behavior explicitly, you should go for some other approach. For example, assign a shear hinge or a shear spring, and that can be elastic or inelastic. Similarly, torsional behavior and some other behaviors other than axial and flexural behavior, they will not be accounted in fiber modeling. If you want to make them, if you want to explicitly model those behavior, then you have to add additional elements. Alone, this fiber modeling will only capture axial flexural interaction and axial flexural behavior. So fiber hinges in ETABS can be used to implement fiber modeling. So the hinges in ETABS can be of two types. They can be used for plastic hinges, used as plastic hinges, and they can be used as fiber hinges. Okay, and there are two types of fiber hinges available in ETABS. One is PM3, and other is PM2M3. And all the rest of the hinges are basically used as plastic hinges. Okay, they are for plastic hinge modeling approach or for concentrated plastic hinge approach. Only these two hinges are available for fiber hinges in ETABS. PM3 fiber hinge is used for beams and shear walls, which means that for those elements in which the major axis of bending is only one axis, and the axis in the second axis and the bending in the second axis is not considered. For example, beams can bend only in this direction and not in the out of screen and into the screen direction. Beams can bend only in one axis. Similarly, the shear walls also, if this is a shear wall panel, it will only be deflected in plane action. It will not be designed to resist out of plane actions. So it will bend only in the in plane direction, so only in one direction. So beams and shear walls, they are, since they bend only in one direction, so therefore PM3 hinge is used for those elements. Axial load and moment in only one direction. But for columns, since they can deflect in both directions, we have to use PM2M3 hinge. So this is for columns. In beams and shear walls, we divide our cross section only in one direction because only in that direction the element can bend. So if we have a beam cross section, we will only divide it in this direction. We will not divide it in this vertical direction in this cross section because it will not be, we don't require fibers in that direction because that direction bending is not considered, or it cannot bend in that particular direction. For example, if I want to consider out of the screen and into the screen direction bending, only then we can require this fibers in that direction also. So if I cut the cross section in this direction, then if the beam is running in this direction, then out of the screen and into the screen, this direction also bending can be captured. But since that is not important, we can only want to only capture the bending into the plane or into the screen direction. So therefore, we cut the cross section of the beam only in this direction. Okay, so the fibers are only in one direction. Similarly, if this is the shear wall leg plan view, we only divide that in this direction like this. We cut the cross section in this direction. And we don't cut in the horizontal direction in this plan view because the bending is only in the in plane direction and not in the out of plane direction. But for columns, we cut the cross section in both directions because column can bend in both directions. So for example, for columns, if we have this column cross section, we not only divide the cross section in this direction, but we also divide in the other direction also. So this is how the fiber section of column may look like. So this is how the column section, the fiber section of beam may look like. And this is how the fiber section of a shear wall may look like. So the fiber hinges which we should use in ETABS for columns is PM2, M3, because in columns we have to consider fibers in both directions and axial flexural interaction in both directions. So obviously each fiber will have a tributary area and its own stress strain curve. So basically when we define or when we cut the cross section into fibers, we will basically assign a tributary area to each of the fiber. So each fiber will have a location in the cross section. Each fiber will have an area in the cross section. And third thing is the stress strain behavior. Plane section are assumed to remain plane for the section which ties together the behavior of material properties. So this assumption is there in the fiber sections, that plane section before bending and after bending remain plane. Fiber hinges are often more realistic than moment force or moment hinges. Both are, but are more computationally intensive. So fiber modeling approach may take more time, the analysis may take more time to run compared to the concentrated hinge modeling approach. So now let's discuss one by one these three elements: beam, column, and shear wall. First, beams, fiber model for beams. So this is my beam cross section, and since for bending about horizontal axis, we use the fiber section, this one, and for bending about this vertical axis, we are not concerned with that because that will be out of plane bending for beam. The primary bending axis for beam is this axis, the one which I am highlighting right now. So we will have fibers only in this direction. For bending about vertical axis, we just assume the behavior as elastic. If we want to have that behavior as inelastic, we can cut in the vertical direction also, but for beams, that behavior we are not much concerned. We will just leave it as elastic. So we just cut the cross section only in this direction. So whatever at level we have all these steel bars, we just lump them into one steel fiber, and that steel fiber will have the area equal to all of these 4 bars. Similarly, at the bottom we have one steel fiber, and it will have the area of all the steel bars, and it will have the same level as the location of these bars. There can be certain other steel fibers also, depending upon whether we have some other bars or not. And then we have concrete fibers, which we cut along the, you can say, primary bending axis. And those will be, you can say, concrete fibers. And those fibers will be given with some area and location, obviously, and then stress strain behavior. So lump properties at center of the fiber, basically we provide these properties at the center, and it will have some, at that point we have some tributary area. So the whole area will become one fiber, one concrete fiber. So that's how we actually perform or make the fiber section for a beam. And then again, this fiber section can run along the whole length. Let's say this is the length side. So they can run along the whole length, or they can run along part of the length also. So here in the bottom figure, I show that these fibers, they just run along part of the length. And this is called fiber segment for concrete and steel fibers. At both ends, we have fiber segments, and in between, we have the linear elastic frame element. So basically, this model of beam is the lumped plasticity model, lumped plasticity, where the plasticity is lumped at certain finite lengths. Okay. So these lengths can be maybe some proportion of the total length. Generally, you can have the plastic length from different available literature, plastic length of beam. And this is the length which is defined actually as the length in which the inelastic action is expected due to applied loading. So several guidelines are available in available literature. What length you should consider. Generally, it is expressed as a particular fraction of the effective depth. So if this is the effective depth of the beam, some guidelines say that you should use 0.5 times the effective depth, and some also can use the length equal to the effective depth of the cross section. So you have to provide this segment length also if you want to go for the lumped plasticity approach. Alternatively, you can run the fibers along the whole length of the beam, but that will make the model more heavy. It will take more time for running the analysis. So for beams, fiber segments at both ends of a reinforced concrete beam is shown here, and linear elastic element is in between. So the length of the fiber segments is a small fraction of the total beam length. It can be 0.5 times the effective depth of the cross section, or can be also equal to the effective depth of the cross section. So it is just one small fraction of the total length. So some common features of the fiber model for reinforced concrete beams are that we basically assume that the primary bending axis can only have an elastic action. The other axis out of screen or into the screen action direction, it will remain elastic. There can be no inelasticity in that direction. So we only make fibers only in one direction. Inelastic bending in only one direction. To model bending behavior in the vertical direction, fibers are needed only through the depth of the beam. So fibers are required only in this direction. So when the beam will be bent, these fibers will develop some stresses and strains in them, and if those strains bring the fiber into inelastic range, the inelastic effects are captured in the beam. For horizontal bending, an elastic bending stiffness is specified. So for the bending in the out of plane direction, only EI value will be used directly. But for vertical bending, the fiber model will basically determine the EI value. So E value becomes now variable because of the fiber modeling in that direction. Why variable? Because in fiber model, we have actually assigned the stress strain behavior, nonlinear behavior. So E will be determined by the stress strain behavior in that direction. For out of plane bending direction, there will be no PM interaction, but obviously in the primary bending direction in which we have assigned fibers, axial flexural interaction will be captured by fibers. So in the out of plane direction, it is also assumed that there is no coupling between vertical and lateral bending. So they are considered uncoupled, they are considered unrelated. One doesn't affect the other. Vertical bending and lateral bending doesn't affect each other. So this was about beams, but now let's discuss the column fibers. As I've explained earlier, that in columns we will have fibers in both directions, because column can have bending in both directions. So a fiber model for a column must usually account for biaxial bending. So fibers in both directions are needed. And this type of model can account for PMM interaction. So when we make column in both directions, basically we have to assign the PMM fiber hinge to our column. Then it will allow us to divide our column in both directions. If we go for only PM hinge or PM3 fiber hinge, it will allow us to cut our cross section only in one direction. So for columns, we will go for this hinge. So this is the real column cross section, and this is the fiber cross section that we hypothetically cut it in both directions. And each of the fiber is now either a concrete fiber or a steel fiber. So for both beams and columns, the behavior in torsion is usually assumed to be elastic and also to be uncoupled from the axial and flexural behavior. So as I have explained earlier that the fiber hinges can only account for axial flexural behavior. All other behavior or other aspects of behavior, they have to be modeled separately. And if you don't model them explicitly, they are by default assumed to be elastic. So for example, torsional behavior is assumed to be elastic if you go for fiber modeling approach, unless you also provide a torsional hinge to explicitly make it inelastic. Otherwise, it will remain elastic and uncoupled from axial and flexural behavior. It will remain uncoupled anyways, even if you actually assign a torsional hinge also. So in the right, you have a figure where you have assigned the column fibers. This is the side view. So you can see only fibers in one direction, but actually it is in 3 dimensions. So only the fibers are applied for a part of the segment at one end and for other part in the other end. So these two are the 2 fiber segments at both ends, and in between is the linear elastic frame element. So for columns also, you can either lump the fibers at both ends or you can run them throughout the whole length of the column. Now for RC shear walls, a shear wall has bending in 2 directions, namely in plane and out of plane. And often it is accurate enough to consider the inelastic behavior only for in-plane bending, which corresponds to membrane behavior. And for plate bending, which means the out-of-plane behavior, the behavior should remain as elastic. So just like for beams, where we just leave one behavior, out-of-plane behavior or bending as elastic, and we only make the primary bending axis as non-linear, here also we actually just make the in-plane action as non-linear by applying fibers. But for out-of-plane bending, we just leave it as elastic. So fiber model can be similar to that of a beam with fibers only for membrane behavior as shown in the figure. So this is the actual cross-section of a shear wall leg. And now what we did is that we divide the cross-section along the length into concrete fiber and steel fibers. So each of the black point here is steel fiber, and that is actually accounting for some of the rebars which are close to that fiber. So in middle, we have steel fibers, and we can lump different rebars to actually make one fiber. So all of these 6 bars, 8 bars, they are lumped now as one steel fiber in the middle. You can also lump 2 bars and make more steel fibers. But each of the steel fiber, these steel fibers which are shown here originally with black color, they are actually assigned with a steel stress strain behavior. And for concrete, you can also make fibers. You have seen here that the fibers are closely spaced or small, close to the ends, and they are big in the middle. So since these inelastic action is mostly concentrated or is expected to start actually from the ends of the shear wall leg, so we make more closely spaced fibers, small fibers, and we can make them big in the middle also. Or alternatively, we can decide about this depending upon the capabilities of the software which we are using. So for each concrete fiber, we assign the concrete stress strain behavior. So this is the shear wall fiber model. So same as other elements, we have steel fibers with steel stress strain relationship and concrete fiber with concrete stress strain relationship. But the fibers are only running in one direction, which is the vertical direction in the cross section. And we are not dividing the cross section in the horizontal directions. So this is another illustration where the actual cross section is shown with rebars. So I divide them into concrete fibers These are concrete fibers, each one of them running along the height of the building now, because shear wall is like this. So all the fibers are like this, running along the height or along the length of the member. And there are steel fibers also running along the height or along the length of the member. So as with the beams, the effective stiffness, effective flexural stiffness for out of the plane bending, it will be elastic. Okay, it will be specified directly. It will be elastic. It will not be nonlinear, and there will be no coupling between the membranes effect and the plate effect. So in plane actions and out of plane actions, there will be no coupling between them. The inelastic, if the inelastic plate bending is to be considered, then you have to divide your fibers cross section in the other directions also. There must also be fibers through the wall thickness. Okay, in that case, if this is the shear wall leg, then you have to divide in that direction also if you want to consider the inelasticity in out of plane direction. In that case, you will also have these horizontal cuts along the thickness. So in that case, the fiber model will become like the model of the column. And in that case, you will go for that PMM fiber hinge in E-tabs. Okay. Otherwise, you will go for only PM3 plastic hinge or PM fiber hinge, sorry, for your shear wall. So for shear wall and beam, go for PM hinge. Otherwise, go for columns, go for PMM hinge. One important point which I have taken from Graham Powell's book is that in the figure A here, the whole shear wall is considered like one column, just like one cross section. And in the figure B, you have actually divided them into different shear wall legs. Now, this option, this approach, option A, where you are actually modeling the whole shear wall as one column, considering it as a whole one cross section, it may not be correct in some cases, because for a fiber section, we generally assume that plane section remain plane. The plane cross section, which is before bending plane, will remain plane also after bending. And this can be a reasonable assumption for a planar wall. Here in the option B, what we divide, that how we did it is that we have divided our whole shear wall into 3 different planar walls. So this is a planar wall 1, planar wall 2, and a planar wall 3. So plane section remain plane assumption is good for planar walls and not for a wall which is not plane. If we consider it as a whole one cross section like a column, the assumption may not be good or incorrect. It can be incorrect for an open thin walled cross section like this. So plane section remain plane is adequate for this kind of a model. So it is always accurate to divide your shear wall into different legs. So if your shear wall is like this, you divide it into 3 legs, and each leg can be modeled like a fiber modeling, and you can cut the each leg in fibers. So now towards the end, I want to introduce this multivariable line element model for shear walls. This is based on fiber modeling, and it was introduced by John Wallace. So this is the multivariable line element model. Multivariable line element model. Line element model. And this is based on the fiber approach. That what you do is that you actually, if you have this shear wall panel, so this is your shear wall panel, this shaded area, and what you do is that you actually model that with concrete and steel fibers. So these lines, these thin lines, are concrete and steel fibers which are running along the whole height of that shear wall panel, and you constrain them from top and bottom with a rigid link. Okay, so if you are at level M-1 and this is the level M, for example, this is your shear wall panels along the height, and you just take one panel out. So what you do is that you use a rigid link at top and bottom, you constrain them, constrain the ends of the fiber model, and this will actually account for your axial and flexural interaction. And for shear behavior, you can have a shear spring or a shear hinge. So this is your shear hinge in the middle, and this is for shear behavior. It can be linear or non-linear, but for this model, it is a linear shear spring. So the shear behavior is kept as linear, but axial flexural behavior is made non-linear using non-linear concrete and steel fibers, which are constrained at both ends of the shear wall panel. So if you go for the rigid diaphragm assumption in your real three-dimensional projects, it is as though that you have actually constrained the ends of all the fibers in one particular panel. So if you go for this rigid diaphragm option in ETABS, you are actually you will automatically constrain the fibers, concrete and steel fibers in this model. So this is sometimes called as the multivariable line element model, in which you just divide the cross section into different line elements, and each of the element is either concrete or steel fiber. So this is one practical model for nonlinear modeling of shear walls. Okay, let me use that manual, by the way, which I have just introduced. And that manual, please download that manual, and this gives you very detailed information about nonlinear modeling. So for fiber modeling, let me directly go to, all of the information is available in this manual which I have shown you. But let me go to ETABS now and show you where you can actually define the fiber model. In the define section properties, you go to frame wall nonlinear hinges. And when you click that, you will get this form. You click on add new property, then it will ask you whether you want concrete, steel, or user defined. You select, let's say, concrete. It will show you this form. This form will list all the hinges which are available in ETABS. So I think I have a better picture also for this form. I think in first chapter, where I actually classify these hinges. Yeah, in the second chapter, yes. So the hinges which are available here. When you open this form, you will see that this is the whole list of plastic hinges which are available in ETABS. So axial hinge, shear hinge in the other direction, torsion hinge, moment hinge in M2 direction, and moment hinge in the other direction. All these are uncoupled concentrated plastic hinges. And then you also have the coupled hinges, which include the axial flexural interaction. And these are all the coupled hinges. And in coupled hinges, the last two are the fiber hinges. All the other ones are actually the concentrated plastic hinges, but the last two are fiber hinges. So you will use this PM3 hinge for actually shear wall and beams, and PM2M3 hinge for columns. So let me quickly go through, let's say for columns, I go through the process of actually making these hinges. All the screenshots are available in this manual, so please go through this process. Let me go to the relevant chapter where actually I define the plastic hinge, fiber hinge for columns. Yeah, this is the chapter 3, I think. So the very first step is that you go to frame cross section, and you actually define the real reinforcement, the real design reinforcement for each of the cross section. Generally, when we define the cross section, what we do is that we don't actually put the actual cross section with each of the cross section. But since the actual reinforcement is used in making these fibers, so therefore you have to define them first. So here what I'm doing is that I'm defining the actual reinforcement, actual design reinforcement for each of the column. After that, I can define the nonlinear hinge for that column, define section and nonlinear hinge. and then I can add the same process, and then I can select for columns, I can select P, M2, M3 hinge, fiber hinge, and then I click OK, and I give the length of the fiber segment, which can be the fraction of the total length. So I give 0.1, which means 10% of the length on one end and 10% on the other end. Then I actually select a particular column and then go to assign frame hinges, and then select that whatever hinge I have defined earlier, FH1 is my PM2 M3 fiber hinge. I select that and I apply it to a relative distance of 0 and relative distance of 1. Okay. So when I apply it to a relative distance of 0 and 1, which means at both ends, these fibers should lump at both ends. When I click OK, I can again go back to the same define frame sections and nonlinear hinges, and I will see that those automatically generated hinges are already there. So software have already defined those hinges on my behalf when I just select them and assign them. And then I can modify them also. I can see that how software have actually divided. So you can see this figure that software have actually divided the cross section with the actual reinforcement in this manner, that each of these entry is one fiber, and each of these entry has an area, has a 2 and 3 axis, which means the location in the cross section, and each of these fiber have a particular material property assigned to it, and that material property has the nonlinear stress strain behavior automatically. And obviously we have to first define that nonlinear stress strain behavior, otherwise it will take the default Manders model. So that's how software can divide your cross section into different fibers, and these fibers are assigned with nonlinear stress strain relationship.